All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back again. I am Mark Anthony Dark 66, and we are in our next movie here. Modeling movie, giving tips, tricks, fashion advice, modeling advice, amateur and professional, all types of modeling here for your entertainment. I am the guy to look for on social media. Check my modeling out, my Instagram, Mark Anthony Dark 66. I work for a LLC called Dark South Limited. That is the name of the company I work for, and it's all about modeling, entertainment, music, and fashion. Okay, so let's get into it. Let's first talk about jewelry, and then I'm going to segue a little bit into my childhood. First of all, I've been wearing jewelry since, let's see, I was probably in the 5th grade when, so I was somewhere around there. It was either in 5th grade or early middle school when my aunt, shout out to my Aunt Cindy, got me my first sterling silver necklace. Okay? Now, the one thing I can tell you about jewelry is, of course, it has to do with like your family. You know, if anybody, wears jewelry in your family. This pertains more to men. Okay, this is definitely more for men. I'm going to exclude women on this, not to, just to focus on a male first, just to kind of like get, get my rocks off, if you will, if I can just focus on them before women. Not to put men before women, but it's just like jewelry between men and women are something totally different. I'm even going to throw my personal opinion into this. I'm going to start this out with my personal opinion. And this is going to be a little bit of dating advice here. Okay. We're going into dating here a little bit. If you really want to attract a woman, okay, now this is going to be, you can judge me however you want on this. This is going to be hypocritical, but I'm going to tie it into what I'm going to say. If you're really trying to attract a woman in a heterosexual way, do not wear a lot of jewelry. All right? I'm just going to say that again one more time. If you're trying to attract a woman in a heterosexual way, do not wear a lot of jewelry. Now, in some cases, for some men, there are exceptions. Usually that is very rare. Okay, but we're gonna talk about that right here, right now. That's why we got this channel. That's why I'm here to help, because it gets very complicated out there, ladies and gentlemen. I want you to understand this. When you're looking at me and what I do as a performer, as a local celebrity, as a famous model, as a content creator, etc., and I say this, like, my word is not gold. And I'm humbling myself, okay, because I want you guys to watch my videos and stuff. What works for me does not necessarily work for you, okay? I am an extremely flamboyant man, okay? Extremely flamboyant. If I'm wearing articles of jewelry and I'm doing a modeling shoot, I'm rocking and rolling, I'm out with my homies, celebrating, you know what I mean? That's my business, and I'm about to get into that. But women, look, no man has women figured out totally, okay? But this is what I can tell you about women. When it comes to dressing as a heterosexual male trying to attract women, do not wear a lot of jewelry. Less is more. You want to show your genuineness, your personality, if you are a guy that wears jewelry, like, just wear a watch. maybe a bracelet. Earrings is kind of stretching it. Okay, and I'm gonna be the first one to tell you that, because like when it comes, this is not like the attract woman channel. Okay, this isn't a dating website. Okay, you're looking at a pro male model on Instagram. I have to go with trends. Okay, that's part of my job. I go with trends. I go with what's in style. Jewelry happens to be very big and gaudy these days, so I'm gonna model it, obviously. Okay. Secondly, where I'm from has a lot to do with the jewelry that I wear. I'm not going to say where I'm from. Let's just say I live close to a city. Okay? I go to the city. The rules in any city is, okay, doesn't matter where you're from, if you live in the city, if you're visiting the city. If you're visiting the city, you got to get in touch with who? The homies, right? Or the people who live in the city, right? So, let's just say I'm locally famous, as I am, and let's say I visit the city every so often. I'm like a magnet for people who are trying to sell stuff. Salesmen, jewelry salesmen, clothes salesmen. Okay, there's the guy. There's the guy. Let's go get him. Part of me wearing a lot of jewelry is, one, where I'm from. I live close to a city, and two, I'm almost representing them. I'm representing these salesmen by what I'm wearing, because my business partner sells jewelry. Okay, right. Now, it has to do where I'm from aesthetically. I live in the United States. My business partner lives in the city. He's also a jewelry salesman. Now, I'm even saying that if you're going on a date with a woman, and you show up with a ring bigger than your head or bigger than your arm, however you want to say it, over exaggerating, it's not going to turn her on, because that's like, she's going to be like, this person's kind of like, a little bit strange over here, you know what I mean? That is a huge nugget of my advice. Now, me being in the jewelry game since I'm in fifth grade, okay, having my first bling, my business partner's a jewelry salesman. Everybody knows where I'm from. I'm famous, okay? It's different, okay? Like, I'm not the guy who's, running around the neighborhood mowing lawns. I'm not the guy who has like a big construction company over there. I'm not the guy who, is, running all over the world like Elon Musk, because I'm just so, famous and revolutionary. I'm a model, okay? I'm internet famous. I'm locally famous. Like, it proves my image to stay true to my image. And really, the truth of the matter is, my business partner and others, they enjoy me repping their jewelry. And really, I haven't even done any endorsement deals yet. I haven't even promoted them. I'm just promoting my business partner here as I sit here in my car and speak about it. The lesson you can learn from this is what works for most heterosexual males does not work for all. Okay? And no matter what environment you're in pertaining to who you are, and your identity matters just as much. Yeah, and vice versa. If I went on a date with a girl who was very, like, iced out, I don't know. I wouldn't judge her. I wouldn't judge her, but it's like, where are you from? Like who do you roll with? Like, who are your friends? Sort of thing. And those questions for me are answered. Okay, because if you watch this, you know who Mark Anthony Dark 66 is. Like, there's a whole reason for that. There's a story behind that, and we can get into that much later. But unless you're some type of a model, some type of an actor, I don't know, a rapper or a singer, and you wanna really flash it, like I do, go ahead. But you're not gonna. I mean, all that. What's that saying? All that glitters is not gold. But it's like and that's the name of a movie coming up. It's almost like Vulgarian. When you're blinging it in somebody's face like that. Like even hi mom, if you're watching this, by the way. I love my mom so much. My mom says, well, Mark used to have nice jewelry. And that's true because, the stuff I wear now is very like in your face, and I don't want to use the word, I don't want to say disrespectful, but when somebody wears a huge amount of diamonds in somebody else's face, it's borderline rude. Borderline. Okay, and that's coming from a pro model. And so now we got that out of the way. So now you get the jewelry situation now. And keep that in mind. What looks good on Mark Anthony Dark 66 does not necessarily look good on you. If you want to attract females, less is more. They want to see like your muscles, your strong hands. Like they don't want to see you like looking like an iceberg. Okay, unless that's, oh hey, hi, I'm an iceberg. I'm a snowman. Okay. That's cool. I'm not making fun of anybody else who does, because I do it. Okay, and it's almost in a hypocritical sense, but know who you are. If you're like a bodybuilder, why would you wear 10 pounds of ice unless you're Mr. T? But he's Mr. T. Okay, you understand? Like it's different. There's different. He has a whole crew behind him. There's like, he's got like bodyguards. He's like Mr. T. He's like a celebrity. All right. Anyways, we'll come back to that sometime. Because and really, I'm like wearing nothing today. I'm not wearing any earrings. I'm not even wearing a watch right now because I didn't want it to take away from what I was saying. I didn't want to get distracted. Yeah, so oh yeah, so me getting my first chain at a young age. Okay, let's get into like high school a little bit. I was not the best dressed in high school. And honestly, like I got rid of my yearbook, but I did receive some type of award that didn't have to do with what I was wearing. But what I will tell you is whoever was best dressed in high school, that is not modeling. And I'm going to tell you why. People who have identity issues rely on fashion. That's why kids in high school are so keen on what everybody is wearing, and we've all been there. And like I said in my previous movie, you got to get into psychology. You got to understand what makes people insecure, what makes them feel secure. That's why high school kids, and we've all been through it. Okay, oh man, what am I going to wear? Oh, I'm going to this party. What am I going to wear? Oh, I don't know what I'm going to wear. Okay, that is key in presenting yourself, like to the best of your ability. It's just you got to embrace it. That when you're at that age, everybody's insecure. You're relying on the name brand to carry you because you're making an overzealous statement because you most likely don't have a job. I don't know. I guess some places could hire when you're 14, or if you have like a family business or whatever. Like everybody's like you're basically poor when you're in high school, et cetera, et cetera. But maybe I wasn't poor when I was in high school. But okay, we're not going to talk about that. But no, I was not best dressed in high school, and whoever wins that award, I'm sorry, young kids, but that doesn't mean that you're going to be a model. There's so much more to it. You're not even hitting the tip of the iceberg with that. Like forget about mommy and daddy. You'll become a model when your mom says that nose ring looks ridiculous, take that out if we're going out in public. Then you're a model. Okay? Difference. All right. Now, my personal opinion, I'm going to end this segment on this. I love when name brand designers, top of the line designers collaborate, when they do collaborations with other real companies. And a few of my personal belts, I have a few favorite belts that I wear of these two of my favorite companies, and I'm not getting endorsed, so I'm not going to say them. They did a collaboration, and like the belt came out like beautiful, like real leather. You could smell the leather right out of the package. Like, oh, it was beautiful. That's my personal favorite. And again, talking about my personal wardrobe has nothing to do with modeling, but I'm a human being like everybody else. I gotta throw in my personal opinion now and then, just so you guys can see the relevancy of my likes and dislikes in terms of, like, my portfolio and what I wear. But again, even in my portfolio, I'm not necessarily wearing something that I love. I mean, doesn't really correlate all the time. So those are some huge nuggets for you guys to really, really think about. And try to avoid hypocrisy when judging other people. But in other words, like, there's almost no such thing as hypocrisy when you're judging what you're wearing versus somebody else, because we're all individuals. We all look different in our own skin, male, female, this, that, and the other thing. What looks good on you doesn't necessarily look good on the next person. And I'm looking out for you. I'm telling you, men out there skimming the dating topic, you're really looking to, like, impress a woman. Don't even wear earrings, man. I'm just telling you, just don't do it, man. It's not, let me wear the earrings, I'll dance around all day. You see me doing some type of, like, Instagram commercial or something like that. Unless that's your bag, brother, keep it masculine all day. Avoid the jewelry. A wristwatch is what I would say will put you over the top on your date, man. I am Mark Anthony Dark 66. I love you all. Have a great day. I love this time of year. It's like, oh, I love it when summer ends and you get that crisp air. You can breathe the air. Love it. All right, Mark Anthony Dark 66. I'll see you guys later. Peace. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back again. I am Mark Anthony Dark 66, and I think I found my new video spot. Comment on this below if you would rather me be sitting in my car in the dark, or if you would rather me do the movie like when I'm sitting in the rocking chair, etc. It doesn't really make a difference to me. It's just this kind of shows my personality a little more, because I'm part gothic and I enjoy the dark. I just love it. It makes me feel so peaceful. All right, so this movie, I totally decided that we were going to talk about photo editing. This is really boring. Like, I really don't even want to talk about it. Wait, just to get my mojo going here. Let me just put the icing on the cake. There we go. Who wears sunglasses at night? Mark Anthony Dark 66. Okay, so, like, photo editing. This is, like, super boring. Like, it has to be talked about because it's part of modeling. When it comes to photo editing, just do it yourself. It's one of those things that you need to learn for yourself in every situation. I'm not going to sit here and name software unless I get some type of business proposition or some type of endorsement. It just doesn't make sense for me to talk about that. You have to use it based on your features to make yourself look better. Whether you want to use AI or not, that's totally up to you. Oh, that's what I was thinking on my mind. AI. If you look to AI for your like titles for your movies and stuff, like how is AI gonna tell me what I'm trying to convey to my audience based on my title? Like that is, I don't have any problem with AI, but that's like too far. Like you're a robot, I'm a human being. I don't even think you know if I'm gothic or not, or part gothic, or whatever the what I'm trying to deliver to my audience here about my personality. But like, you're not gonna tell me if my title is like a percentage of what sounds good according to the algorithm. Like I get it, but like as long as my hashtags are good, like keep it moving. You know what I'm saying? And like I open the videos the same way usually, hi, I'm Mark Anthony Dark 66, I'm a pro model, this, that, and the other thing. Like I'll keep doing that. But like I think my movie titles are my favorite part of it because it kind of shows you like kind of like my personality, at least up to this point, and like how I'm sticking with it and what makes me comfortable to talk to you guys. So I'm not with that with the AI because everyone's asking all these questions about AI. Like you can't tell me who I am personally when I've been on this earth for X amount of years, and like you're gonna tell me what movie title sounds better because of who I am. Like you don't know me better than I know me. What are you, crazy? All right, so anyways, that's the only thing I'm saying about AI. More advanced models. Here's a statement I have for you to motivate you. Okay? Every time you broadcast a clothing item or accessory, you just modeled for them and you did not get paid for it. In your free time, in your spare time. Say you go out on a Friday night, a Saturday night, you're wearing a name brand, and you don't even realize it, but you're modeling for them. You're like, oh, okay, this is the brand that I stick by. This is who I love. You should be getting paid for it. That's a motivation that I always had, like before I became pro and all that. You know what I mean? I was like, wow, I'm like basically doing this for them, and they're not paying me. What if I was getting paid? Just kind of psych yourself out with that. I'm gonna repeat this again. This is a repeat. Big misconception. Is always repeated. The most expensive outfit is the best dressed person. No, that's not even close to being true. Whatever price you pay for your clothes, you just got to make it flow from like head to foot, like you're singing a song or you're doing some type of a performance. I will say that more expensive clothes are more comfortable in a sense, better fitting. They'll make you feel better, but that doesn't necessarily mean they look better. So keep that in mind. Okay, so I'm going to close this out with these two rules. I made up this rule myself. This is totally genuine from the like Mark Anthony Dark 66 modeling book. I made this rule. It's called don't model for dad. Like modeling is not trying to win somebody over. Okay, this isn't like okay, I'm just going to walk in here tomorrow and demand all these compliments on my outfit, and now I'm a model. Now I'm an official model. I'm gonna hit up Mark and I'm gonna model with Mark, and we're gonna do some modeling together. That's not what this is. Okay, and I'm giving you the attitude because the attitude is what you need to hear. Um, it's like, yeah. Since the beginning of time, and this is repetitious again, everything's already been done. So like if you wait for you yourself to get the job, and then you get the job, and then you get the nice watch, then you decide you want to become a model because you have a nice watch, and somebody gave you a compliment on it, that's not even modeling. That's just like it's like it's that's like trying to gain somebody's respect, or like trying to get, force somebody to agree with you, this, that, and the other thing. Like with my dad, I know that, and I'm trying to speed this up for you, okay? Because like, you know how many times like I'm like, before I became like a real model, I'm like, Dad, do you like what I'm wearing? Do you like what I'm wearing? Do you think this looks good? This. Hey, do you think she'll like this if I do this? I've been through it. I'm speeding this up for you so you don't have to make the same mistakes. Okay, you don't have to look stupid in front of your dad. It could be embarrassing for some of us. You're never gonna win him over. You're never gonna win her over. They came up, mom and dad. They came up in a different time. Okay, can you use them as a reference to like steer your modeling career? Yeah, absolutely. But what you're gonna do is you're gonna like use him for advice, and if he starts giving you his clothes to wear, gratefully accept the clothes, okay, and try to find something of yours that you could like wear with it. I know that sounds crazy. It's like, okay, like I'm wearing my dad's clothes, but it's like that's kind of how it is when you go pro. They're like looking at you like, okay, well, we don't like what you wear, but we're going to give you what we wear, and you're going to like it and you're going to look good in it. So you can almost like use your parents as like a prerequisite to like pro modeling, because you're never going to win them over. It's just never going to happen. And in this game, the designer is always bigger than the model. Okay, I don't care, if you're Tyra Banks, they're always a step above the model because they're the designer. They make the clothes, whatever. So like, this is not a game of winning people over. This is eventually getting them to like the styles that you like, but just that, or the styles that you're modeling. Like that's your goal. Like, don't get, that's one of the reasons why my portfolio like 10 years ago failed, because like I didn't know what I was doing. I thought that like I had to like get everybody to like what I was wearing, and really I was just like defeating myself. Like, you're not there's not a model alive that is gonna get everyone to buy every single outfit that they model and wear, and they're gonna get every single compliment because they're just so beautiful. Yeah, I mean, maybe in heaven, okay, but not while we're on this earth living this life, but anyways, try to absorb that. Again, it's very abstract, it's very complex. If it was so easy to talk about, we wouldn't have this channel. Drop me in the comments. Tell me if you like what's going on here. I'm loving being in the dark with this. It's like so I'm getting such a gothic feel right now. I'm like, oh, I love it. I love it. It's like, it's almost like euphoria to me, just being in the dark. I really, really love it. So that's what I'll leave you with. Absorb all that. I got to get ready for the next movie. This is Mark Anthony Dark 66. I'm a pro Instagram model. Check me out on there. Check out my fashion statements and some of my pro jobs. I'm part gothic. And I've been a model for a minute, and I love it, and I just love being here in the dark. Peace, guys. See you later.